Good early afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that you are all doing well, managing to avoid big crowds, managing to avoid coronavirus. And I would like to welcome you to our event, How to Survive Crisis with Cost Cutting and Efficient Management. We have two great speakers. First of all, I would like to welcome Lukáš Uhl from Zoot. He said a few words about himself. So, Lukáš, floor is yours.
Thank you. Michal, thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate that. So I am the CEO of Zoot for the past year and a little bit. I joined the company at the peak of the crisis as a crisis manager in charge of the transformation and managing the company through the insolvency process. And then afterwards, before that, I did a couple of things. One of the more known is the management of Dámy jídlo. And so I'm from the online. And before that, I was also a management consultant. I also did a couple of cost-cutting engagements during the time. So I am both from the online environment as well as the operational cost management part of the business.
Okay, thank you, Lukáš, for your brief introduction. And second, we have Joao Duarte from Lighthouse Ventures, who has a background in HR, since majority of costs for startups is in HR. So cutting the costs, meaning letting go people, cutting out on your staff. So Joao will be here to speak about his perspective, also from scaling startup up and down. So Joao.
Thanks, Michal. So before joining Lighthouse, I was actually founder and CEO of a startup called Techloop, a platform for hiring IT professionals. So we grew quite quickly. We went through different stages, and I've seen a bit of everything when it comes to having to fire people, having to hire people. Before that, I started a company called Hagen Human Capital, where I'm still a partner. It's a recruitment company. And I remember that I was already working in HR and recruitment during the previous crisis. I've also seen the several cycles of the market. So definitely happy to take your questions when it comes to hiring, or in this case, firing, or how to manage your HR in general during a crisis like this one.
Okay, thank you very much, Joao. I would like to remind to all of you that we have a Slido where you can find all the questions. You can add your question if you don't find what you are looking for, or you can top up the questions that you find more interesting, that you want the answers to be heard. So I would like to ask with first question, which is how to set priorities for cost cutting in your startup, where to start. So Lukáš, what about your experience of what would be your advice to the entrepreneurs?
I have a couple of thoughts on that. It's very hard to give you like specific, like this is the department, because every company is very different. But I'll start with a couple of principles that I can think of. Like first is that you have to realize that like EBITDA or the profitability doesn't matter, and it's all about cash or cash management. And because no company ever died of negative EBITDA, they all die because they run out of cash. And it's different things, costs and cash is very different. And some of the costs doesn't mean that you have to pay money, and some outlay of cash actually doesn't mean cost. So there's a distinction between the two. And like when you think about what to do in your company, this is the thing I would keep in mind. Like first of all, it's how much you have on your bank account and what could be the cash sources, short-term, long-term, and how to make sure that you are not sending away too much money which is not necessary. So it's like one thing that I would think about. And as I said, there's a distinction between cash and profitability. And another thing that comes to my mind is then ultimately when you go down and think about the business and you have decided to like reduce it or make sure that you don't lose that much money, then as a general principle that I always think about is first of all, like find the margin in the business. Like wherever there's a margin in the business with specific customer group, specific product segment, specific geographic territory, or like parts of the business. So I would first focus on like finding where the margin is and where I believe the margin will be, and then cut everything else. And in different companies, it can mean very different things. So for example, for a company that's more established and mature, I would say they can already look into their data and how it works and then decide in a corresponding way. And I would recommend those companies that they significantly slow down or stop new things, product development, stuff like that. For a startup, it can be very different. So if you have a pre-revenue startup, then the only thing that you can do is product development. And maybe you are not affected by the crisis at all because you don't have revenue to start with. But the priorities for the transformation, I would keep these principles in mind, like where I believe the margin is going to be, and then be very tough and very clear in your mind what actually is needed to run the business. And you would be surprised how businesses are resilient, like how much they survive with very little cash and how much they are able to operate with significantly reduced cost. And I've been so many times in my life where I thought, okay, I cannot cut here anymore. And then there's a pistol into your face, and then you find a way, and it works. So you just have to be inventive enough and creative and make the hard choices.
Associated question, is it better to cut in product or sales and marketing these days?
It's like every company would be very different. Like in very often, like take marketing, for example, very often you'll see that you cut some parts of marketing and there is no immediate downside on anything. And for example, if you cut pay-per-click, like the performance marketing, usually there is immediately a decline of revenue of some kind, because there you pay for performance. It's performance marketing. If I would see that, I would probably keep it as long as it makes money, it makes sense to keep it. Brand marketing in time of crisis. Brand marketing in times when you are burning cash and don't have a long runway. I would definitely cut it. And because brand building is something that's long term, and I don't think you need to invest long term when you are facing immediate, like life-threatening crisis. It's like if I have a high fever and I'm sick at home, I probably don't think about my diet or exercising, even though it's good for my long-term health. Short-term, I do significantly different priorities. So it's the same here. Like if you see you don't have any money, then I would cut brand marketing and don't think twice. But there are businesses, even during this time, there are two types of businesses. One type, they have 4 times larger revenue that's normal, and they are thriving and they are making big parties. And then there is the other type of businesses where you have revenue divided by 4. So if you're in the second kind, then you think about then you could be here in this webinar, and then I would not invest in brand marketing at all, complete zero. And so that's like, for example, marketing part, product development. If you depend on actually getting your first product out of the door, then I would not cut product development because you need it, and it's your current business is to develop the product and start off the ground. And if you are an established company that has the products, then I would probably reduce the investment in product development significantly, because you can there's always hope that you do one more new product, you launch something, and then the revenue comes. And it's never like that. It's never like that. Like, no, there's no new extra revenue without extra cost. Nothing ever just falls down from the top line to the bottom line. There's always things that you didn't think about, and they just emerge and appear. And yeah, there's that guy I need to hire to do that, and so on. So if you are an established company, I would probably not invest in product development at this point and think about other things. Sales, I would probably not touch that, because sales is something that brings money in. And category is like all the administrative, operating, like back office things, and you would be amazed. You would be amazed how much you can decrease there and still be all right.
Joao, what about your response to the same question? How to identify priorities and where to cut first, product development or marketing?
So what I would say, and talking more to the funded startups, is that it depends a bit on when you raised, how long is your runway, and on what part of the cycle are you. So if you are just working on your product, you don't have a product ready to launch yet, you don't need to have salespeople yet. You're just focusing on the R&D. You can try and save money on things that you would otherwise use by canceling some services that are necessary, canceling on perhaps some offices. You can also ask people to work less hours or to delay part of their salaries. So there's always creative ways you can use. On the other side, if you already raised some time ago, you might be in more of a tricky situation, because if you are in the kind of business that gets affected badly by this crisis, you are not able to grow. You are not able to show growth, and for a startup, growth is everything. So in some cases, you need to make sure that you will have enough money to survive the crisis, and then to kick back growth after the crisis is over as well. And that can be really tricky. So normally to startups, you normally say, look, don't cut on sales, because if you're cutting on sales, it's a spiral. You start cutting revenue, the revenue becomes less, and it goes in cycles. But in some cases, you just cannot sell right now because the customers are not buying, or they're not in the offices. It can be really difficult. So in some of those cases, you might actually want to do cut on sales a bit, or tell your sales guys, look, I need you to work half the time, or come back in 1 month or two. You need to be creative. Where you're going to cut or how you're going to prioritize things ultimately depends on what part of the cycle you are, and on how much runway you have.
Okay. Second, a very important question. You have customers, but who is important for your business? It's your employees. So what should I tell my employees? How to efficiently communicate with my employees about the tough economic situation for the startup? Lukáš.
Absolute, radical transparency. And this is what I do not only with employees, but business partners as well. The company can survive and live through almost anything, or the relationship between two people or two parties can withstand a lot of beating if there is radical transparency, and there is a belief from both parties that they are being open and honest, and not misusing the situation in some way. So what I strongly believe in is to basically show your books or show the numbers, to explain what the current situation means. And I am not hiding that this current situation is very bad for the fashion retail. I'm not hiding that at all. And I even, in some cases, with some negotiations that we are having now, I'm actually showing, and we have a reporting in good data in the reporting system, and I'm actually showing reports from the good data, and to demonstrate what's the magnitude, what's the severity of the situation. I don't think it's going to be like that forever. I don't think it's the end of the industry. I don't think at all it's the end of us. Far from that. But at this time, during this time, the situation is not easy. We have to preserve cash. We have to transform. We have to respond. And being able to persuade others to follow along, you have to be open. And I think it's a key to people understanding each other and being able to work out solutions that wouldn't be possible otherwise. Like if one party thinks the other is just using the situation to get the advantage, then they are going to fight. But if they see what's actually underneath, and there's a question either explicitly or implicitly asked, how can we jointly work together so we don't damage each other? There's always, well, I haven't found any single time during which the other party would be like deaf and say we don't want to talk at all. Like there's always a deal that can be worked out, both with employees and business partners, either customers or your suppliers. So I strongly believe in being open and so sharing numbers and also saying what it means. So this means that we are getting this amount of money during this time period. We have this mandatory cost. We have and what we are doing in order to transform. And once the other party understands what's going on, you can achieve almost anything. And people are very open and very.
And would you admit a real runway to the employees? Like if you are in the situation, you have an investor who put money, you count on some revenues, so you count on some costs. Would you admit to your employees how severe the situation is and how long is the runway of the company?
Yes, and under condition that there is a hope at the end of the tunnel, and I need to be convinced about it myself. So when you when you have a bad situation, you do your planning, you do your Excel, and then you realize that you have only so much time, and but you only have this time if you do nothing. And there is always something you can do. So so I have, let's say, X number of months before I run out of cash. So what can I do? I can. This is what we did. Like we said, okay, we don't need an office in the city center of Prague, so we moved somewhere else. So, for example, there's a lot of measures that you can take that make the runway longer. You have to let go some people. You have to maybe ask some of your colleagues or all of your colleagues, it should be to everyone, to reduce their salary to a certain amount, and this can happen. And but you can only persuade people if they understand that there is no other way, and at the same time, if they do that, it's going to help. If they do that and it's not going to help, then there's no point. But so I would. So this is what we did. This is what we do. So I did the planning. I saw where we stand. We figured out a long list of things we need to implement. If we do that, there is some buffer. We are going to be fine. But what we need to do, we have to do this, and that, and I need to get everyone on board. And then there's the whole communication that needs to happen in order to do that. But I would admit 100% what is the situation. But at the same time, I would have the answer how we are going to solve this.
Joao, what do you think about being honest with employees and communicate in tough economic times?
Yeah, so it's always super important to be transparent. I completely agree with Lukáš, but especially in a time like this, first of all, you need to tell it like it is. You need to let people know what's the real situation and where you're heading. You need to be transparent. Second, this doesn't need to be all on your shoulders. You know, by sharing it with the other people, they will come back with. You'll be surprised with the ideas they will come back to, with how many sacrifices they are willing to make. You know, if you just leave it open and say, look, if anyone can delay something, come to me. You know, if anyone has any idea how we can get more money from our customers, come to me. You know, just creating that kind of open atmosphere really helps generating new ideas and has ultimate effects on the bottom line. And lastly, and this is the tough one, you might have to fire some people. You know, and that's always super tough. So once you know that that's the way you have to go, you want to do it immediately. You don't want the word to start spreading, you know, and you want to treat everyone with utmost respect because they are colleagues and friends of the people that are staying. So if you have to go that far, that's it as well. Do it quickly and do it with respect, but don't hesitate, you know, because that's your company. It's the future of your company. That's the stake.
Yeah, it's absolutely right. And I remember yesterday, a friend of mine asked me like this is tough, obviously, and how do you handle it? Like, how do you handle that you have to let people go? Like, it's not easy out there. And I think it comes down to what frame of mind you decide to have. And like, if it comes down to letting people go, then you can either think about that, I'm firing 50 people, or you can think about it, I'm saving 300. And it totally only depends on how you want to view the situation. And in the Czech Republic, people do not die on the street because they would be fired. There's a security net provided by the government. There's all sort of things that they can do. Industries that are thriving, even currently. So it's not going to be easy for them, but it's not also going to be impossible for them. So you're not killing anyone. And doing that means saving the whole thing, or other jobs and the jobs of your business partners, then it's meaningful. And that's the thing that you have to keep in mind when you go home or go to bed to sleep, to think about the positive aspect, because the negative is negative, obviously, but it's not the end of the world, and there's the positive also.
I have one personal question that relates to you, Lukáš. You mentioned that you as a CEO, you need to see the light at the end of the tunnel, but where to seek for like personal motivation and inspiration as CEO if you see that everything is black and negative around you, like how to find the good things and how to convince yourself, because if you don't convince yourself, then you will be like doomed CEO, and then others will not believe you. So how to be a better CEO at the current times and where to seek this light at the end of the tunnel?
I think big part.
Drinks.
I think big part comes to a personality trait. Like I can get beaten and still like go
and smile.
And but sometimes it's tough. Like I'm not going to like there have been times, especially at the beginning when I joined Zoot, at the beginning when there was an extreme amount of uncertainty, and there were some big stakes, like big unknown things. There were times during which I came into work in the morning, I switched on the computer, it made me physically sick. I remember like I was sitting here in the office, which I was like, I'm going to throw up. Like when I thought of all the things, but then
Oh, you had long hair before you joined Zoot.
It's a long time ago that I lost. Like it was a voluntary decision. And I started to but anyway, it was I love problem solving. I love the content of what we do. Like this is a situation, how are we going to get out? So the actual content of the things we thought about motivated me. But what also is needed, so I think, and it's part of the personal trait that like what do you do if you get punched in the face? And I don't mind a good fight. And but at the same time, I think it's very, very, very important to have someone to talk to, someone, and it's not a subordinate. Like you cannot talk like about all the uncertainties. I think I would be 100% open and transparent to people for the situation, but I would never want to be like uncertain or hesitant. That's a very like big distinction. Because I need to be convinced, but at some times you are not convinced, you don't know what to do, and you need to think and talk about that and brainstorm the ideas. And it might not be the best idea to include everyone in that about the biggest uncertainties. But you need someone to talk to. You need some board of advisors. It can be a friend, it can be a respected colleague or ex-colleague. It can be your investor. Like that's one of the biggest value add of the investors. It's not only money, it's also the network, and it's also someone to talk to. like during the good times and during the bad times. And so I was lucky that my colleague, my business partner, Robert Vojáček, is someone I could always talk to in a very open way, and even about the uncertainties. And our investor also, the company Michal. We have a great working relationship. We can talk openly about the issues, the ideas, and how to. And I think it's very important to be able to do that with someone, because that then you can see the opportunities that you didn't see before, because you had a tunnel vision. You were focused on something else, and being able to talk to someone opens it up, and it gives you also the motivation that you are sharing the current situation with someone, and you're not alone in that. So I think that would be the sources. I think it partly has to be like within you, the ability to stand up when you get knocked down, and partly being able to talk to someone openly and think about the possible scenarios.
Okay, Joao, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I agree with everything Lukáš is saying. It's super important that you are able to stay calm, to separate your emotions about how you feel about the situation from the thinking part, because there is always a play. You know, you need to stay calm. If you stay calm, you talk to people, you'll find out there is always a way. There's always a play. I recommend a book, The Hard Thing About Hard Things, from Ben Horowitz, when he explains how he took a company public with 2 weeks of runway in the middle of the 2008 crisis. And there's many of these stories, right? There is always a play, but you need to stay calm. You need to talk to people. You need to confide in your advisors, your partners, your investors, and find that way. You know, don't give up. Don't let that desperation take hold of you. That's super important.
So that your employees should not see you being the worst like a mental wreck in the company. They should you should be like leading by example.
Yeah, I mean, this is the time you have to be a wartime commander. You know, the wartime commander just leads from the front and leads by example and pushes. And definitely, you cannot show that weakness. You need to be the one staying calm, staying rational, and keep solving the problem one after another, because there's always a way. That's what I would say.
Yeah, related to leading by example. Question to Lukáš. There are a few questions about cost cutting and cutting the salaries. So how should the CEO lead by example in these difficult areas such as salaries cutting?
Yeah, he should be the first to take it. And I think the whole management should be the first to take it, and then everyone else if that is necessary. And
so associated question, sorry. So the management should be cutting their salaries like percentage wise higher than ordinary than what you ask for normal people.
I think I thought about that a lot, and what I think is also I have a lot of friends who are in some leadership positions in other companies, so we talked about that. And what I believe is that, for example, a specific example would be like everyone who earns less than 25 or 30,000 Czech crowns per month, like cut it by 20% for the 2 months or something like that. And then everything or everyone that earns more, so any salary or any amount that is above the 30,000 gets cut by 30% up until, for example, 80. And then everything that's above 80 gets cut by 40%. So maybe something like that. So I think there should be some sort of progression. You can ask a CEO to be without a salary for a month, but you cannot ask someone working in the warehouse or someone working in the store to do the same. It's impossible. So there has to be a certain progression, and I think there needs to be also some time limit. Like, for example, this is not forever. You can, like, people can, or I even can take a lot, but you need to know that it's only for, like, say, 2 months. And then it's a different story and it's good, I think.
Okay, Joao?
Yeah, you need to paint the goal. You need to paint that light at the end of the tunnel. You need to explain it well. Look, it's going to be tough. We're going to do this. But if we do this, we will achieve that. We will get to this point. And at this point, things will be better. And I strongly believe in that. And that's what the plan we are executing. And yeah, you'd be surprised how resilient both people and businesses are. You know, but you have to lead.
What about using employee stock option plan as compensation for lower salaries, like adding more stock to people as opposed to having higher salaries? So what do you think about this?
I think it's a valid strategy. Sorry, I think it's a valid strategy in this kind of times to compensate the people in that way. Yeah, for sure. It's a good idea.
It would be. Again, I think it very much depends on the person on the other side. And this is my personal view, and I appreciate that everyone else in this webinar might have very different view than I have. I think in the Czech Republic, in a lot of cases, people do not appreciate or do not perceive too much value. Stock option program. It's very different in Silicon Valley. It's even different in Berlin. In Czech Republic, there is very, very frequently, I felt when it was on the table in some cases in my past, that people didn't put appropriately saw the value in itself, but it depends on like how much value you see in that. And in what I felt in Czech, that there's not, like there's a value in having a stake in the company. There's a nice upside, but it didn't have like too high, it wasn't too high attractive factor. So this is what I felt. And if it comes down to having a stake in the company, there's the ESOP or some stock option program or direct equity. But when you have a person who actually had to invest their own money in the business as a manager, and they had to take $500,000 or something out of their own pocket and send it somewhere and not be with the money, then you have a motivation that's like 1,000 times larger. And it's incredible. Even for myself, I've experienced that in my past. Like I had some upsides in stock, that was nice. I was happy. But when I was with my own cash, with my own skin in the game, the pressure and the motivation, it was a wholly different game.
Okay, great. The salaries were cut. How to find a way back? Revenues will be rising again. How to communicate it to employees? So it's like how to do with the salary cutting. I understood from both of you that it cannot be infinite, but how to find a way back and plan it.
Either time constraint after 2 months, after 6 months, something after 2 months, something after 4 months, or a commitment like when the revenue get back to this, then we go back to the original.
Yeah, that's it. In some cases, you can. In some cases, it doesn't even need to be a cut. It can be a delay. It can be repaid back, or if possible, it depends on your kind of business. But yeah, it should be limited for some time. I think people can take it for some time, but then at some point, you just can't take it anymore. So I think 3-4 months maximum is probably reasonable. Beyond that, it's tough.
More positive topics. Crisis as source of opportunities. How to identify new opportunities. I read that you have new service from Zoot, so that people can accommodate better to and order better. So how to identify new opportunities in the crisis?
It depends on the segment, depends on the industry. In this case, I think it's going to be like there's a big unknown, and that unknown is how big of an economic crisis are we going to get? Because there are whole industries, gastro, travel, automotive, that are getting hammered, and that's going to cause something. And the Czech government, I don't think they are doing too much. The economic measures that they are putting into place, I think it's more of a joke than a real appreciation for the economic reality. So it might trigger, or I believe it will trigger some form of crisis. Also, if you see what's happening abroad in the United States, in Western Europe, on which we are dependent, then it doesn't paint a nice picture. So myself, I'm preparing for crisis. So we are restructuring the company so we can operate on lower revenue and we'll be fine. And we are changing also some structure in the business. So so to have more variable costs as opposed to having fixed costs. Fixed cost is fixed, you have to pay it. If you have variable cost with respect to revenue, then if you don't have too much revenue, you don't have too much cost. You have much higher flexibility in the business. So when you expect a downside, it's better to have variable cost. If you see a big upside, a nice future, it's better to have fixed cost because then there's the margin that you can create. And but there would be definitely opportunities. People are getting used to buying online way more, which is a good thing for the segment we are in. And also something specific to our industry is, or the online e-commerce is that there's the acceleration of the marketplace models. So in the classical e-commerce, you buy the products, either being it a jacket or a phone or whatever, and then you sell it on your website. And in the marketplace model, you don't own it, you don't buy it as a company, you just offer it, you list it on the website, and then when someone buys that, it gets shipped right or through your warehouse. So I think the increase in the marketplace models is something specific to us, to the fashion, because it's happening, and we are already being contacted by a lot of e-shops in fashion, in Czech, and suppliers that they want to participate in our marketplace model because there's an extra source of revenue for that. So that are the changes in our specific case. But in different industries it will be different. But I believe in every crisis there's an opportunity. You just need to look for it.
Okay, Joao.
You know, it's a good opportunity to think of innovative business models or to think of transformations you can do, because just as some demand disappeared in some areas, it increased in other areas. There's so many examples. So, for example, this Punk beer manufacturer, they switched to hygienic hand gel, same brand, Punk hand gel, and they were able to even increase their sales. You know, they basically retooled very quickly to produce a different product that is in high demand. You saw the examples with Rolik now that launched Rolik Bistro, Suchi Rolik, and a number of other variations of products. So you can try to think creatively and see, okay, what can I do? On the other side, if you had a crisis like this, is also a good opportunity to cut some expenses that you were not able to cut before. You know, because now everyone understands. So it's, you know, we had this kind of benefit here. Now we cannot have that. That's gone. If you had an employee that was not performing very well, and you were, you know, on the fence, you know, should I let him stay or not? Well, you know, now that decision gets made for you. So stronger businesses come out of crises like this, leaner, you know, meaner. So I think you can, if you are able to survive it, you can come out stronger with more ideas, with new business models, and then that will help you grow faster afterwards.
Okay.
One example from our side, for example, is so now every retail is closed down. Every physical brick and mortar store is closed down. So there's thousands of small boutiques in the cities across Czech Republic and Slovakia and everywhere else, and they are all cashless. They have the cost, they have the salaries to a big extent, they have the rent and everything. They have to pay a lot of costs, and they don't have revenue. There'll be some compensation from the government, but the times are going to be tough for them. So, and we give opportunity to these small boutique stores of fashion they can be our pickup location. We started to do that, I don't know, half an year ago, and what I expect or what I know, because it already starts, is a lot of these businesses come to us, say, we want to be your pickup location because we need extra revenue, because we are sending their customers to pick up the package from us, and we are also paying the money to do that. And so we thought about that, and we said, okay, so there's this opportunity. We'll probably be able to sign up a lot of them in a short amount of time. We also want to help them so they don't go bankrupt. And we want them to work, we want them to see us as partners who are helping their business. So we'll be sending their customers to pick up our packages, we'll pay for them, we'll pay for it. And at the same time, we thought maybe we can offer our stock, our merchandise to them, so they can, for example, choose 30,000 Czech crowns worth of stock, and we will send it there. They can keep it, they can sell it, they can do whatever they want with it. It's a support from our side, and as long as the cooperation between us works and they are doing what they should be doing, they are nice to customers, they are doing their duties to us, they can keep it forever. And like that, it will be 2 or 3 years, and then it's they can do whatever they want. So so there is like the local businesses that are having tough times. It creates some sort of demand, some sort of need that they have, and we can respond to that because we have means to respond to that. So we will give them some stock that that we have, and it will tighten the partnership between the parties and align the interests. And
okay, so my understanding, and another question, are there any positive effects from the crisis? Which do you see as positive effects coming from this crisis?
Every crisis, it's, I think the job market was getting very, 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 very hot. So it cooled down. And you need, I think you need every couple of years, you need some cleaning in the home that you need to do. And there have been a lot of cash and quite a bit of negligent spending for a lot of companies, and things will be rethought. And I think that's a good thing because it makes the economy stronger and healthier. And it also makes everyone more motivated. I remember a couple of cases, like a couple of examples. I remember when I joined Zoot at the very beginning, we had a big buying team here, and we wanted every buyer to make some introduction or presentation about her category, showing the numbers, what is the strategy that she has, talk about the suppliers that belong to her category, and so on. And I remember one girl who was a buyer at the time. She prepared the presentation, but so it was a full day of presentations. But the last 2 presentations that we were supposed to have, we had to postpone by 1 or 2 hours because we had a call with our investor and it was quite important. So we asked them to postpone by 2 hours. And that girl who was here working, she came back to me. She was like 22 years old, and she said, "If you are going to postpone my presentation by 2 hours, I'm not even wanting to do this for you anymore." And I was like, "What?" I'm almost 40, and I would never dare to say something like that to my colleague or to my superior. And she was 22 years old and very, very cocky about everything. And I think a crisis makes people more motivated, and you can get motivated by upside, and some people are motivated by the upside and are like they want to do more, and some people are motivated by the downside, and they fear something, and it's very natural. It's like genetic in the person. And when you have a situation on the market where employee can dictate, and the owners and the leadership can only hope that nothing bad will happen and they will not upset them too much, and when an employee leaves, he or she gets a job within the next 5 minutes, then it's very tough to make a change happen, to improve something, even if the employee is performing badly. in a bad way. So I think that is a kind of change that we are getting, and I think it's very good for the economy and the environment.
Okay, we have more specific questions. Some companies force employees to take their vacation right now during the crisis, or something like 4-day work week. What do you think about this? Because people cannot travel, they need to spend their time home anyway, and companies force them to take vacation. So what do you think about these measures?
Yeah, it's look outside the time stuff. Like they are probably doing that to survive. So I'm more like leaning. I'm an employer myself, so I understand the point of view that they are having. They are probably managing their cash flow very tight, and it depends. There's a big difference in the managers. So some managers are very direct and like this is what's going to be, and no questions asked, and I don't want to talk about that. And some are more open. I think the openness is what I said. Like this current situation will make the employees more motivated, but the same applies to managers. And some of them don't deserve to be managers. And hopefully those who are not behaving in a transparent, professional, and so on way, will also be let go. Is what I hope. So
Okay. In the distinction between CEO and CFO, who should watch P&L and who should focus on cash flow? Who should be responsible for which part and why?
I think like it's a natural responsibility of the CFO, obviously, to know what's going on. But like the CEO usually focuses on where's the biggest fire, or biggest opportunity. So during this time, I cannot imagine not being personally 100% involved. So we do the payment decisions. We have this payment board every week, every Tuesday. We sit down the Excel and we prioritize. We think what we are going to purchase, what not, and so on. And so it's I'm involved. I'm personally now involved in the spend of every single crown in this company. And when the situation a couple of months ago, when it was easier, it was run on autopilot, and I were more far away from that. I was on a weekly basis. We were watching was the cash flow plan, was the situation, but I didn't look on the specific invoices, specific payments. It was just according to some rules that we had. But during this time, I'm watching everything 100%. And it's not that I don't respect our CFO. We have a great CFO that I trust very much. But I need to take more responsibility on the trade-offs that we are doing. And I need to be able to explain and make the right priorities. So that's why I get involved. It's an issue.
It's a wartime versus peacetime, right? Now it's wartime, and you need to, as a CEO, you need to know everything that's going on and be making those decisions, because ultimately the bucket stops with you, not with the CFO. You know, so peacetime, maybe you give more responsibility to the CFO. Wartime, like it's you have to know everything that's going on.
So if your clients are not paying or are being slow, how to handle this?
Yeah, that's stuff like it's you have to expect that to a certain amount and make provisions accordingly. And then I think it's about making some sort of one very specific example. 2 years ago, I was in Pietro Philippe, and our client or our business partner was Zoot, and Zoot didn't pay. But I was on the other side. I was with Pietro Philippe and Cara, and we had our products here in Zoot. And Zoot was owing money and didn't want to pay. So at that time, when I still had the jersey of Pietro and Cara, I called Zoot and I said that we are not shipping any more products unless we get paid. And I remember the phrasing in the email. It was the email. I remember the phrasing in the email. It was like, yeah, we need to get paid or work out some sort of an arrangement before we can ship additional products. And at that time, I expected Zoot to call me back and say, look, we cannot pay, but we can offer this payment calendar. It will be delayed by this much and that much. And I expected to get some benefits, for example, but we are going to do the emailing for you. We are going to brand several pages on our website in a certain way. We are going to do posts on the social network. I thought that I would approach with some sort of a deal. So I can make the concession and say, okay, you can pay later. But at the time, it didn't happen. And so maybe there's a deal to be made with if the company on the other side is not paying you, then I would obviously communicate and I would escalate slowly. But there will be a time period I will escalate. So first it's just a call, friendly reminder, then there will be another friendly reminder, and so on. But it would escalate. And at some point I would be trying to figure out a deal. Like, okay, I can wait, but you need to do this for me. And I'm going to do this for you. What are you going to do for me? And I would be like putting more and more pressure. And from experience, the one who shouts the most gets paid. Even if the time is tough, like it's, I've seen it so many times in my life. There's a company that owes money to 10 people, 10 companies. And there is one company that shouts the most and tries to make a deal, shouts the most, threatens with legal action, and so on. He is the one who is getting to get paid first. The world works like that. So if you're not getting paid, I would not turn the blind eye. I would work on that. I would try to make it happen somehow. Make a deal, exchange something for something, get a better position, get a signed acceptation of the claims, whatever. And I would be very pressing. I would not turn the blind eye and not call a week, for example. I would be, if there's a lot of money, then there would be a constant action that would be escalating in a certain way.
So you would send the Russian-speaking colleague there?
I don't believe in that sort of thing. But I think legally you can do a lot of things. Like even like this is one of the things I wanted to point out. You have to understand the legal framework you're operating in like 100%. Like for example, for us in insolvency, it's very specific, and you have different set of rights and responsibilities. So you have to understand that because it gives you some maneuvering space. Even this time gives you space. So you can send home employees on 60% of the salary. You can argue that. So you can, it's not normal situation. So there's tools that you have at your disposal that are not normal. You have, you don't need to pay the banks, the loans for the next few months. That open a lot of possibilities. For example, if you pay rent, maybe the landlord is leveraged, maybe he has to pay the loan to the bank. Now there's a 6-month delay that he doesn't have to pay, so he would be more willing to give you concessions on the payment terms with the rent, even though you don't have direct relationship to the bank. And you have to understand the legal framework 100%. Even if you think about the current situation, like if you believe it's going to cause an economic downturn, this is what we did with a bunch of stores, the spaces that we are renting. We reviewed the situation and we said, okay, maybe there's a crisis going to happen. The current legal situation is that the economic environment significantly changed. There is the Czech phrase is podstatná změna okolností. So the underlying economic factors have significantly changed, and that opened a lot of contracts for renegotiation. And if you don't like them or if you don't come to terms, you can get out of those contracts. You have to ask for the specifics. But having this as a tool is extremely powerful. So there's a rent agreement for the next 2 years. And with this, you can go to the landlord and say, look, the situation changed significantly. We need to renegotiate this, or I'm out. I cannot afford, this is my revenue. Look on how many people are coming to the store. I cannot afford to stay here. So either 50% off on the rent forever, or I'm out. I cannot do anything else.
Okay, Joao, did you have anything to add here?
Yeah, some practical tips on how to handle the client situation, but also how to handle your suppliers, because you might see it from the other side. So on the client side, like Lukáš said, you have to escalate it. You have, I completely agree with you. Who makes money, who makes more noise, often gets paid first. So you have to contact the client again and again over the phone, over email. And if the client cannot pay immediately, which will happen, then you have to agree on a payment calendar with him, or that's one option. If you agree on a payment calendar, actually get it signed, get them to commit to pay this amount of money by that date, and then enforce that. Just a note, from my personal experience running businesses, if you're going to take a client to court or arbitrage, it's going to cost you some amount of money as well. So in the past, few years ago, at Hagen, we had a client that owed us, I don't know, £500,000 crowns, and we went through all these steps, and then in the end, we ended up taking him to court. But what happened is that he and both us and his employees and all the other suppliers sued him. He left the country. It ended up costing us something like 40,000-50,000 crowns in legal fees and court fees, and you never got the money back. So at some point you think, okay, I will take him to court, but if the company is going to go bankrupt, you're actually going to lose that money as well, on top of the money you already didn't get. So you have to also weigh that, like how much are you owed versus is it worth it spending those legal fees. Now apply this to the other side. If you are a client and you cannot pay your supplier on time, your supplier is going to be hurting, he's going to be suffering. So I think the best way to handle it is also to communicate, to be honest, to be kind, to try and agree on a payment calendar, to try and be reasonable and open. Don't just ignore his emails for 2 weeks. That will just make him escalate it very quickly. So it's again the same, guys, I'm really sorry, we cannot do it. Is there something we can do? Can we do some kind of bartering? Can we agree on a payment calendar? Can I delay this part for next year? It's super important to communicate on both sides a lot. And controlling these two things, just to finish, controlling these two things, delaying your payments to suppliers and trying to get paid quickly by your clients, it's really an essential skill, because cash flow is everything now.
There is a question, and my associated question will come afterwards. How to manage release of your contractors and suppliers relationships?
You have to know what your legal framework is and try and talk to them. That's it.
Yeah, so it's the same as with employees, like being open goes a long way. I said being open and transparent, but it doesn't mean to be weak. It actually means you need to be very tough. If you are open, if you if you correctly describe the situation, you can be very, very tough. You can be, you can say even like cruel things. And as long as you are straightforward and it makes sense. And I think even many times in my life, even people appreciated the openness and being straightforward about the situation, even though I had certain things I demanded or I insisted upon, and I couldn't get away from. So you can be very tough. You can be very tough. It doesn't mean not be tough. Be tough, but be open as well.
Okay, I understood from your point that cash in the bank is the king, and there's a question: is there any tool or app you would recommend for cash flow overview, management, and planning?
So for planning the cash flow is very different from planning the P&L. You start with the P&L, but certain lines get moved in a certain way. And for the Peacetime, it's okay to be on the P&L basis. If you are a retail company that manages purchase and selling of products, then you need to manage cash flow all the time. But during this time, it's more about the cash flow management, which means that you have what we have is weekly schedule. So the monthly figures get translated with some precision to weekly figures. And we think about like it needs to be, so VAT gets paid this time. salaries get paid this time, and so on. And so we have the cash flow report, the plan, and then we have here on Tuesday. So every Tuesday there's a Monday and Monday to prepare everything, and then on Tuesday we did the decisions. We see how much money we have on the account, what's ahead of us, how much we can pay. So the first question I always ask: so how much we can pay this week? And here's a figure, and then we allocate the figure, and talk about the consequences. And this is the very regular, very normal standard operating procedure for us. So there's a specific Excel. So the first Excel is the plan. So we see what's ahead of us, and then there's the second Excel, which is all the costs and all the invoices we want or we can pay or we can go for, and then we prioritize. And then so we do the payment decisions, and then we need to think about, okay, 2 weeks from now we are going to need to pay this amount of money. How are we going to close that gap? So you can sell more, you can run a promotion. If you are optimizing for margin, it's different than if you are optimizing for cash flow. So you can structure the business, you can ask for a delay to some of your suppliers, you can go to the investor, to the bank, you can, and so on. There's plenty of things.
There is good associated question that has been about it. Recently, Zoot has been doing many 50% minus promos for a long period of time. Is this a way to raise cash quickly or planned marketing strategy?
No, it's not that. It's not that. To some extent, 50% off is a marketing strategy, but for us in the past, it was more on the cash flow management. For us, the whole situation, we did the first financial plan that we did was at the beginning of January last year. And at that time, our international competition was mostly inactive or not too much active in Czech. We didn't know what the insolvency process is going to have, what kind of effect it will have on the revenue cost and everything. So there has been tremendous amount of uncertainties, and we made certain assumptions, and some of the assumptions turned out to be wrong. And we thought we would be out of the insolvency half a year ago already. It didn't happen. We are just now getting out. And that has an impact on the cash flow, that has impact on costs, on everything. So we had to close the gap, because in fashion, you order half a year before it gets delivered. You commit. So half a year before it starts to get delivered, you commit to a certain level of intake that you have to take in. And we needed to pay certain cash outflow, to pay for those products, and we needed to manage the cash flow very, very closely. So there has been a couple of like 50% of promotion, because it works like magic. And it doesn't create a margin, obviously very little, but it creates the cash flow. So this was a way to cover that gap. But this is not something that we would love to do, but this is something that we did as a technical thing.
Regarding contractors or suppliers, how to prioritize, how to select who you pay if you have some definite amount of money. A while ago, you mentioned like, okay, the least paid employees will be cut least, and like the senior positions or people making like hundreds, thousands or whatever will be cut the most. Is there any rule to follow when you are thinking about who to pay on the contractor or supplier basis, or how to prioritize this payment if you cannot afford to pay everybody basically?
First of all, this question can have like legal consequences. If you prioritize certain creditors on the expense of others, that can be like, if you think, or if a normal person with normal IQ would think that you are getting straight to hell, then having favorite creditors who get paid first is something that can have legal consequences. So you need to be careful about that. If your business runs into the ground, I would definitely talk to the lawyer. This very specific situation that we have in the Czech Republic right now is different because you cannot put an insolvency motion against yourself because that's delayed by 6 months. And we are now everyone is in the moratorium period. So it's different, and I don't actually know what it means in terms of making favorites, in terms of suppliers. But then, if you think that you are going to pay everyone, if you think that no one will be cut in an unfair way, then you can obviously make priorities, and different prioritization will have different consequences. So there are suppliers that would cut you out immediately once they are not getting paid. So, for example, Google, if you are not paying until you get some notification, if you are not if the invoice is not paid, then they are going to cut you. No, you cannot persuade them with being nice words and so on. It's just what it is. So they are protecting their interests in this way, and usually probably they are able to get paid. And then so I would think about the consequences. Do we need to keep the Google running? Yes, no. If yes, then that's the invoice you would pay. You need to sell the products, and there is a supplier that can ship to you great products that are going to fly out of the your warehouse immediately. Then maybe you want to pay it because then he would ship, and then you can sell it and make the margin. So there is the prioritization that you have to make and think about the consequences. And a lot can be negotiated. Like you call the supplier and you try to strike a deal, and then he'll wait, or he can get some cut, and some of them will be willing to do that for you, and so on. So there is very, very specific. Think about the consequences.
Yeah. Is it better to fire people or ask to reduce salaries or just shorten their commitments?
Depends on what you say mid-term, long-term, I would say. If you want to keep those people mid-term, long-term, then I would ask them to work only 4 days a week, or get the temporary cut on the compensation. If you believe you can make it without them, then I would go for the letting them go.
Joao, what do you think about this?
You have to go on a case-by-case basis. You know, with some people, you will want to ask to reduce the salary, or to work a bit less, or to delay parts of the salary. With others, if they're non-performing, perhaps you take advantage of the crisis and just let them go. And maybe to answer the previous question about who to pay first, suppliers or contractors, I would say, as a rule of thumb, you want to pay your employees first. Keep them motivated, keep them happy. Yeah, you can reduce it, but pay your employees first, and basically everyone else comes after. So just as a general rule of thumb.
Of course, there are some legal implications if you don't pay taxes and preferring the suppliers.
Sure.
So this has also like legal consequences. So it is not only like who shouts most, but be careful about the legal consequences
for sure
as well. Joao, question: are Czech startups already firing people and making cuts associated? If so, can you name any examples? Maybe not specific names of startups. It's not fair to mention, but are Czech startups already firing people?
Yeah, definitely. Some sectors were affected very quickly, right? Like travel. So in the travel industry, definitely there are a few startups that let some people go. There were also not smaller startups, but there were bigger players that canceled expansions or canceled expansions into new markets, or canceled certain products, and ended up even letting some developers go as well. So the answer is yes, on both bigger companies and also on the startups.
Lukáš, what do you think about the current e-commerce landscape? Because everybody's saying like, okay, yeah, e-commerce is booming. It's a hot sector. So should people go and start their own e-shop, or what do you think? What would you suggest to people?
E-commerce is not an easy segment, and currently there are categories that are booming. And I recently talked to a friend of mine who, like in one of the bigger e-commerce companies, and he said like the sewing machines are going like crazy, or the sporting equipment also growing quite crazy, and all this hobby type of things. It's great. And then there is the flip side. There is the fashion, probably perfume, stuff like that are getting hammered. And so the current situation is very, very segment specific. Czech Republic has I think like the largest amount of e-shops per capita. So I would probably look for different opportunities, or if you have some special cool idea for the e-shop, or some special skill or some unfair advantage, they call it, then yeah, but you would need to have some very strong plan and very strong source of advantage. Otherwise, I don't know what would work currently.
Joao, what about companies, or what about starting your own business or your own startup during the crisis? Are there any examples of startups started during crisis, and what would you suggest, like us looking for new opportunities during the crisis? What's your suggestion?
So obviously, there's a few sectors that are taking off right now inside e-commerce, but also remote related with remote work, with video conferencing. That's quite clear. But maybe let me just name a few companies. So Microsoft, Google, Uber, Airbnb, and Slack. All these companies started either during the crisis or just in the last year of a previous crisis. So definitely it's the right opportunity. A crisis brings also an end of cycle. All of a sudden there's more people on the market, there's less competition, and so it's a great time to start something. If you have the cash, if you can put the time now to go into R&D in order to have a product that you can take to market when this is over. In fact, a mandatory plugin, Lighthouse Ventures is here to support you if you're looking for funding. So get in touch.
I think like even like everyone knows that the stock market is down, and but it also means like even private valuations are down, and like one of the things before I went to Zoot with my colleague, we wanted to buy a company, we wanted to have a company, so we met a couple of them. We were investigating this. We were in contact and in talks with several of them, and but this is something that could be done, will be possible to do in the short future. There'll be a lot of companies on the market. They'll be cheap, and you don't need to have millions in order to buy them, because there will be money on the market, like the investor money. And everyone, even investors, especially investors, they know that just after the economic crisis, they are buying opportunities. And if you find a company that you like, that would be worth 50 million Czech crowns, 100 million Czech crowns, you would be able to buy it on investor money, or with some combination of a bank financing. It's surprising. Before like 1 or 2 years ago, I started to think about that. Before that, I've never thought about this as an option, because it's like buying a company. I'm a small guy. There's no way I could do that. But a friend of mine who is about 32 or 33, he has about 200,000 or 300,000 Czech crowns in the bank account, and he managed to buy a company of 70 million Czech crowns, because there's a bank financing, and then he managed to issue small emission of bonds like a couple of months ago. So he was lucky. He managed to finance the whole deal with borrowed money. I hope he doesn't go under now, but it's surprising how much you can achieve if you just unlock this as an opportunity in your mind. I just pointed it out. You don't know how would you approach that, but you can talk to someone who has experience in that. He can guide you where to look next. And this is an actual opportunity that there is. You don't have to find something. You don't have to found to create a new company. There will be opportunities on the market that can be bought.
Question to Joao. How the current situation affects our investment business? Do we have to do any cost cuts or any other steps?
Our investment is in Lighthouse.
Yeah.
Oh no, it doesn't change anything. You know, we have capital committed by our LPs. We are backed by strong institutional investors like the EIF. So we are open for business, and we're basically investing in new startups every day. So that's it.
How to manage release of employees? Are there any tips and tricks that you would recommend to startups?
There's one recommendation I have. Go watch a movie that's named Up in the Air, and in Czech it's, I don't know how it's called in Czech, but in English it's Up in the Air.
Lítej v tom.
Lítej v tom. There's George Clooney starring in there and some other actors, I don't know. But it's a good movie. There's a romantic story that I don't particularly remember, but there is George Clooney, his job is to let people go. He works for a company that specializes in firing people. So he is hired by the managers that don't want to do it themselves, and he does it for them. And so in the movie, there is like 20 or 30 firings that happen, and I like the way he does it. He does it in a professional way. He's very calm. He's very factful. He describes the situation, what is at hand, and it's because not many people know how to fire someone. You can read a book, you can watch a theoretic video on YouTube, but you don't see it. Like maybe you've experienced that, or you've tried to do it yourself, but you don't see it. Someone doing that. So you can watch a salesman doing a sales presentation, and you can learn and you can try it yourself, but you rarely have the opportunity to watch someone firing someone. And in this movie, it's in there multiple times, and he does it in a professional, calm way. And so I recommend this. And this is how I think it should be done.
Okay. Question to Lukáš. Actually, to one of the viewers would love to talk to your friend who bought the company with borrowed money. So it's actually my statement. And then a question related to Zoot specifically. In 2019, Zoot announced plan to increase its private brands business percentage from 5 to 30. Is the strategy still valid, and what is the progress so far?
Yes, it is. In the past, that like there's basically two types of products. Most of the Zoot business is sales of brands that belong to someone else, and someone else was responsible for designing the product, developing it, manufacturing it, or outsourcing of the manufacturing, and then he sold it to us, and then we resell. But the brand belongs to someone else, like guns or things like that. And then there's the other type of products where the brand belongs to us, and we manage the design, the development, the manufacture, shipping. And the difference between the two is that there are better margins on our own products because you don't pay someone else for having their brand, but then you have to do it yourself. So you have to have the skill. Anyone can buy and resell, but this you actually have to know how to do that. We have a guy who is very experienced in this. And so we decided, because there are better margins and there's some differentiation vis-a-vis the competition because only we have it. So we decided to invest in this category. We started at 5% because we already had it before we came. We just started to scale it significantly and focus on different type of products. And at the end of last year, we were at 8 or 9% of revenue that were done in our private brand. And the plan of achieving 30% is still like that, it's still valid. We are basically doubling the budget we invest into that every season. So it's much more now. We'll see what the fall winter season will bring, but we still plan to increase the category a lot, and we are happy with the performance there. We are happy with the margins there. So it's still an important part of our strategy.
More on the positive side, if someone is kicked from his or her day job, what would be the area of a startup to start a new business in these days? Because as Joao said, the funding is available. So what do you see as a hot sectors to start new business in this month and these days?
Groceries delivery, I guess. I don't know. It's I'm not up to date on that. I'm like focused on our current situation. But so it's more probably a question to you because you review a lot of businesses and a lot of segments. So I'll pass the.
Okay, Joao, what do you suggest? What do you see?
You should think of it's not just what's on the rise right now, like all this video conference software, but it's more if this crisis is going to cause some changes, some deeper changes in our society, and for how long it will last. And one of the things, I come more from a recruitment HR background, so one of the things I think will happen is a lot of people are going to experience home office during these times. Some people will not like it, but a lot of people will like it. And I think this is going to become a strategic advantage for companies that offer more home office flexibility. And I think a lot of people will look for that in their next jobs. So any tools that support home office, remote work, were already rising and are going to continue rising. So if I would have to pick a sector, I would say, for example, that's a valid one.
Okay, then more of like an oracles type of, when do you think this situation will improve?
So I hope the biggest restrictions will be lifted by the middle of April. That's what I hope for. And I think there's a lot of, and I don't understand a lot of measures that are done by the government. I don't understand why the small shops are closed. I understand the shopping malls, I understand the big gatherings, I even understand the fitness centers, like I can relate to that, but I don't understand the small shops down the street, for example. And I hope it will improve, this will improve, because it ties to economic activity of the population. So I hope this will start to improve by the middle of April, but it's more of a hope rather than having the crystal ball. And then the only thing on which it depends is what will be the measures taken by the government to reinvest in the economy. So far, like for example, everyone knows that there will be this, or there's this guarantee provided by the state for the commercial banks so they can provide loans. So today at 8, they've opened it up, and 2 hours later, all the limit was already taken. So I don't understand at all what the guys in the leadership of this country are thinking about. If there's a room for, like, I don't know, a few hundreds of companies to apply for the guarantee for the loan, they need to put something in place that is like 2 magnitudes larger than what we are seeing currently, because the decline in demand and the economic activity in a lot of sectors. There are sectors that are getting more hammered than we are, or the travel, the gastro, the automotive, as I said. There's a lot of people in extreme uncertainty, and there's not much happening from the government. I believe in. I'm a conservative guy. I don't believe in socialistic spending everywhere, but this is such an extraordinary measure that we can allow ourselves to have the deficit of the budget, not 200 billion Czech crowns, but 400 billion Czech crowns, and it means absolutely nothing in the long term. And that is something I'm not happy with. And like, unless something is put in the place quickly, then we can see an economic downturn that's more severe. If there's something put in place, then things will get better sooner.
Okay, we have last 5 minutes, so I would like to ask both of you some concluding remarks on the topic, or at a more personal note at the end. So up to Lukáš.
Yeah, I've said everything. I think it's important to keep the chin up and focus on the future, not on the mess that we are in now. And don't give up. Like, that's the probably, yeah, never give up. But it's a cliche, but it's true.
Joao?
Look, I love reading, so I'll let you with the book recommendation. There's a book called The Obstacle is the Way, or in Czech, Překážka je cesta, that it's basically about turning really difficult situations into opportunities. And I think that's quite helpful to understand how many people in history have dealt with hard situations and how actually it turned out to be a very, very good opportunity for them. And maybe that could happen for you as well. So that's what I would say. Try to look at it as a positive way and try to find how this can take you to that next step that you otherwise you wouldn't get there.
Okay, on behalf of Lighthouse, I would like to thank to all of you who kept watching from the very beginning. I hope that past 90 minutes gave you some thoughts and ideas about what to do and how to survive current crisis. And if you have any ideas, just feel free to reach us. We are open for investing. We have about 22 million euros left to fund new unicorns coming from the Czech Republic. So we are here to help, and thank you very much for your attention, and thank you very much to our speakers that shared their personal experience, even if it was tough for them to be honest in some areas, but I appreciate it very much, and I'm sure that our viewers appreciate it as well. So thank you very much, and we will see you soon at one of our next webinars, which we will share more information via email. So hopefully it was beneficial for you to hear what these experienced people shared from their experience and not just from the books. So thank you very much for your time, and thank panelists for their thoughts and ideas.
That's it. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Bye.